And hi again, I'm Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot. I just flew in from California last night, and very happy to be here and see all your lovely faces. And wow. So I don't know if I'll just wait sort of a moment until the rest of the crowd gets back over here so I don't have to sort of repeat myself. Whatever, I'm ad-libbing here because actually I was supposed to speak at 6, and I may actually try to grab my spot again at 6 because we were hoping to broadcast it live in California. As you know, the time difference is kind of bizarre, so I can't even tell you. I think it's sometime in the morning or like 6 a.m. or something like that in California right now. So I understand that they had some kind of router or whatever kind of thing stolen from the press tent, and that's very interesting. I imagine that person probably worked for the government, and that would be par for the course. I don't know if anyone really has thought about that, but there's no other reason why you would just walk in here and do that because you had nothing better to do. So again, thank you all for coming. I am Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot. I see that we have a lot of people that have just joined the crowd over here, so I'm repeating myself very slightly. Let me do this. How many people know who Project Camelot is? Can we see some hands? Okay, very good. So I'm not totally talking to people that have no idea where I'm coming from. That helps. Okay, so the bottom line is very fascinating because last night I arrived from California after like 25 hours of travel, and it turned out that I actually took a cab to the front gate of the Grove, and everyone was gone from this area. And I had been told by the press tent that they were the press for Bilderberg, and so I had communicated ahead of time, and I thought that meant that I would have a press pass to get somewhere around Bilderberg. I didn't know the press tent would actually be out here by the road, several miles. I think this is actually like almost 2 miles. I could be wrong. It's at least a mile from here to the Bilderberg house over there. Or it's not, well, the Grove house, whatever you call it. And so what's really interesting is they took me seriously, and the cops were looking for my press IDs, and they were calling to the house and saying that I was here and all of this sort of thing. And so I just have to say that this is like the theater of the absurd, right? Because in essence, the cops, in a sense, don't know why they're here, because I talked to several cops all along the street, and they all just shrug their shoulders and say, we're not from around here, we don't even know what's going on. So I said, I said, well, where are you from? Are you from Ireland? And I thought they were from some foreign country. Because, in the U.S., they bring in foreign troops all the time when something's going on. But it turns out that they're from just other towns, and they just don't know their way around here. But they said that they needed so many staff that they had to go all over the country, meaning all over England, to recruit people, to be guards and so on, because you guys are all so desperately violent. And so that being the case, we do have, searches. They don't strip you when you come in, but they do, they do that scanner thing, and they check your bags. It's very official for a demonstration type of thing, if you want to call that is what this is. And I guess this is English style, because I don't understand how you have a press area that's the same as the place where the people demonstrate. So that's all one. And meanwhile, the meeting goes on over there. So I don't know if we have any press here from, for example, the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Guardian, UK Guardian, or other papers that are of note. I know that BBC One might want to interview me tomorrow, or actually Sunday. they at least have a channel on the television. I don't know about the other journalists here, aside from Alex Jones, who obviously has a pretty big profile out there. I have a fairly big one, you know, not trying to be egotistical here. At least we have a following of some kind. And then I know certainly David Icke is well known in Britain. And I've interviewed him a number of times, and you know, he's a lovely man. So the thing is that the situation is really, if you understand what's happening here, and those of you that are sort of into theater will really appreciate this sort of event and the fact that we've got this drama going on. Because as I was, you know, I was talking to one of my, for those of you who don't know who Project Camelot is, let me just say that my specialty is whistleblowers from above top secret, and that I've been documenting testimony for over 7 years. Long before WikiLeaks was ever an idea in somebody's head, Project Camelot was out there actually traveling the world, interviewing whistleblowers. And what we do is we would put the camera there, and I would ask them really the hard questions. And we would go on for like 2 hours straight, and I would not be editing out anything. So all of that testimony is on the web. We have luckily been able to sort of hit the zeitgeist, so to speak. And so a lot of people have seen our videos, and we also made a pilot for a TV series that scared the shit out of them so much, True TV, that they put it on the shelf for 2 years. When they finally released it, they didn't even tell us or the producers. They just sort of slipped it in on True TV. But luckily we had some followers who got in touch with us just ahead of time, 24 hours in advance. We were able to notify the grassroots people out there. So it has gone basically viral on the internet. It contains a lot of the testimony from various witnesses that we do have all in one place. It's on the front page of Camelot in case you haven't seen it. My partner is a Brit, Bill Ryan. He's actually my ex-partner in Camelot because he moved on to do other things, and most people who follow Camelot will know that. Right now he's actually he's in Ecuador. I guess Ecuador is like where all the people that are associated with whistleblowers or take testimony from whistleblowers of any kind feel an affinity for Ecuador. Not sure if that's warranted, to be honest, but I understand that there's something, you know, some affinity going on there. So basically, what happens is, in terms of theater, what I'm trying to say here is that you've got people who are what I call maybe higher level managers of the New World Order meeting in this luxurious hotel over here. And basically they announce it to the world. The world knows they're having a meeting, and they're deciding our fates. They're not asking your opinion. They don't ask even the government flunkies such as Michael Meacher and other people who have been from Parliament that have been speaking, you know, recently. So they're not asking anybody what they think. They don't want your vote, okay? They just simply are part of the new secret government that is in essence the New World Order that is in operation now. It's not something that's coming. And maybe I'm talking to the, you know, preaching to the choir here because you guys are Brits, right? And so you are part of the surveillance society way before almost anyone else was, because this is Illuminati Central. And so, you know, that's the luck of the draw. I hate to tell you, but, you know, I'm sure most of you are aware of this. And so, hello, Rothschilds. I know that you eliminated one of my whistleblowers after I visited him here not so long ago. This is a reality, okay? So I want you to understand is that what Project Camelot has been researching for the past 7 years, you know, legitimately, so to speak, in the public eye, has been what the New World Order is really doing, what the secret government is really doing, who's really running the planet, and what's going on, and how do you put those sort of ducks in a row so that you understand it. And then once you understand who's running the planet, then the next question is, what are you going to do about it? And I know we've been having overflights of helicopters all day. I have a hotel that's not that far from here, and I've been hearing that the helicopters coming and going. Maybe my hotel is like in the line, the pathway, the flight line of an underground base. So what one of my whistleblowers said was, okay, this is very interesting that these people who can easily get space for a meeting in an underground base and do this all very secretly, which is what they have been doing now for at least 10, 20 years or longer, really longer than that, but let's pretend, let's say the middle managers, so for the last 40 years, a good 40 years. And basically they decided not to go into an underground base because they don't see any need anymore for secrecy. I know this is crazy, but David Cameron, who is basically a spokesperson in a sense, whether he likes it or not, for these people, is basically telling you that they're going to have transparency. Now, if this is transparency, let's have a look at it. Okay, so here you are, and you're here in this little cordoned off area next to a side street. And then meanwhile, way over there, a few miles away, is the Bilderberg Castle. And we're back in the time of King Arthur, basically, and there's a castle, and then there are the peasants, and you, my friends, are the peasants. And what I've also noticed is, since they didn't decide to go to an underground base, that means they don't feel a need to hide anymore who they are and what's going on. So if you go to the front page of Project Camelot, you're going to see my most recent interview with these two guys who are what are called super soldiers. And what that really means is they're augmented, they're mind controlled. They may be putting nanotech into their bodies, like Bionic Man or Woman. You remember those TV series way back when. But in essence, they are also psychically augmented, sometimes intellectually, etc., to do their job. In essence, they work for a secret government. They're like your normal cop or your FBI or whatever, but they are augmented in certain ways because their government, the people they work for, first of all, they're run to some degree, and they are running the world using an AI, artificial intelligence. All right? And they're running it using Cray computers in places like underground in Colorado, Pine Gap. We're talking about Menwith Hill. These are the underground bases. We're talking about Los Alamos, Livermore Labs. These are all the bases on the surface, and you are on the surface world. But these people that run the world actually do it from underground and from off planet. So they're doing it from places like a base on Mars and the moon. And they're actually going interstellar, okay? And you may think I'm crazy, some of you, even though you're so-called, maybe radical thinkers, but you haven't maybe gone down the rabbit hole to the degree that I have. And you have been talking to whistleblowers who come from the dark side into the light to deliver a message to you because it has been weighing on their mind the sort of import of what they know and what the meaning of that is for humanity for ages. And these people, some of them, not all of them, but a whistleblower, that's the nature of a whistleblower. They are somebody whose mind, whose consciousness has actually prompted them to actually give back to you, to give back to society, because they start to realize what they have really been contributing to, which is the demise of humanity as we know it. So they're working very hard on Humanity 2.0, and you're not part of that. By and large, most of you people, and most of the people at least out there, and if you're not of the right bloodline combination, then you are simply not part of the future here on planet Earth, and neither, may I add, are your children. However, they are watching your children, and they're also genetically tracking them to figure out what their genetics are, what their capabilities are, what are their natural gifts coming in. And basically they're going to then take those gifts, and if they're worthwhile, if the secret government needs them, for example, if you have an autistic child, let me just tell you, they have been creating autistic children. They are basically making that happen by using things like fluoride, etc., so that there is more autism now than ever before. And the reason they're doing that is because they're looking for precogs. There's a link, a direct link, between being a precog and being an autistic child. There are other abilities that autism has as well. Some of them are what you call idiot savants, etc. And what they're doing is they want more of those, because what they need to know more than anything else, in a sense, is what you also need, which is to know the future. In other words, they want to know if they're going to be successful at their game, their move to take over the planet and basically eliminate 2/3 of the populations and turn this into a completely different world than the one you know. One that is inhabited by humans that are mostly robot. They're a combination, they're basically android and human. When they can do it, they'll combine the two. And the other thing is that there are going to be a lot of androids, of course. And those are beings without souls, okay? They are, in essence, robots, although they look very human. And this can be done now. In fact, as many of you will know, we have government officials, such as presidents of the United States. George Bush, for example, is one example that has been used numerous times, the one, the younger Bush, who was cloned a number of times. My understanding is the older you are and the higher you go on the food chain, the less potential is that they use you or clone you. The ones they really clone a lot are the sort of right below the top of the pyramid. So they're at the second level. Those people, like some of the people in there actually, but not all of them, will have clones. And therefore, what can they do with a clone? The clone doesn't last all that long, but they can certainly control them. And they can make them actually go out and make speeches and do things like David Cameron did recently, saying we want transparency. But again, if this is transparency, the gap between the reality over there and this reality over here is huge. It's in fact much farther than it looks, because metaphorically speaking, these people are not going to communicate what they're really about in any other way except through metaphor and symbolism, which they do all the time. And so it's very important to watch the symbols. I suggest you also watch the media, because the media are lying to you. So I don't know who is out here that I'm talking to, but especially the mainstream media, and I imagine we've got very few of them here in the crowd today, but basically they're bought and paid for. They have basically swallowed the whole notion of living in a matrix, and they are part of it, and they are selling the matrix. So when they get out there and they broadcast every day, they are selling the mindset that they want you to have, not the truth. Okay, and people like me and the other alternative journalists that are here are the only ones that are going to have the chutzpah, the balls, the whatever you want to call it, to give you the truth. And especially someone as far out on the fringe as I am is one of the few people, I will tell you even more truth than Alex Jones, with all due respect to Alex, wherever he is. So we've got other speakers coming up. I'm told that I have 2 minutes left. And, I can actually talk at length. I am speaking, by the way, on Sunday at the Somerset House in central London. And just a little note, I was told not to advertise the venue, or they'd take down the fact that I'm speaking there if they really knew who I was. So please, if you do invite anyone to come along, we do have limited space at the Somerset House, but I will be talking for 2.5 hours, taking questions for quite a bit of time as well there. So if you don't know about it, you can buy tickets on my website. Front page is projectcamelot.org. ProjectCamelot.tv will also take you there, and Project Camelot Portal .com will also take you there. So I want to thank you very much for listening to me in this brief talk here, and thank you all for coming out, showing that you care about where society is going and the world is going at this point. This is not a superficial gesture that you're making here. So let me applaud you, and let me tell you to continue to work in these ways. These people over here are going to get the drift that people like you are waking up all over the planet, and they are not going to be allowed to continue to operate in the same ways they are used to doing. and that just because they do some little tactic, they put us in a little fence corral, and they let us play around with our little video cameras and whatnot. Meanwhile, the real thing is way over there, several miles away, and they feel safe, and so they let you do that. This is not good enough, okay? It's not good enough for me, and it certainly shouldn't be good enough for you. All right, so with all due respect to David Cameron, let me tell him, there's no transparency here, okay? I'm an American, okay? And I know that my country has been taken over by a bunch of Nazis, Fourth Reich Nazis, okay? There's no two ways about it, all right? But I'm a free American, and I came over here because I knew that it was really important for America to come back to Britain and connect with you all and say, you know, my truth, and basically wake people up. And so, you know, I'm on a mission, and I'm not going to stop until I see every human being on the planet waking up. So please do help me in my mission, and thank you very much, everyone. It turned out that I actually took a cab to the front gate of the Grove, and everyone was gone from this area. And I had been told by the press tent that they were the press for Bilderberg, and so I had communicated ahead of time, and I thought that meant that I would have a press pass to get somewhere around Bilderberg. I didn't know the press tent would actually be out here by the road, several miles. I think this is actually like almost like that in California right now. So I understand that they had some kind of router or whatever kind of thing stolen from the press tent, and that's very interesting. I imagine that person probably worked for the government, and that would be par for the course. I don't know if anyone really has thought about that, but there's no other reason why you would just walk in here and do that, because you had nothing better to do. So again, thank you all for coming. I am Kerry from Project Camelot. And hi again, I'm Kerry from Project Camelot. I just flew in from California last night, and very happy to be here and see all your lovely faces. And wow. So I don't know if I'll just wait sort of a moment until the rest of the crowd gets back over here, so I don't have to sort of repeat myself. Whatever, I'm ad-libbing here because actually I was supposed to speak at 6, and I may actually try to grab my spot again at 6 because we were hoping to broadcast it live in California. As you know, the time difference is kind of bizarre, so I can't even tell you. I think it's sometime in the morning or like 6 a.m. or something. Camelot, I see that we have a lot of people that have just joined the crowd over here, so I'm repeating myself very slightly. Let me do this. How many people know who Project Camelot is? Can we see some hands? Okay, very good. So I'm not totally talking to people that have no idea where I'm coming from. That helps. Okay, so the bottom line is very fascinating because last night I arrived from California after like 25 hours of travel, and